I'm going to start off this commentary by invalidating all of my opinions just by saying that Black Ops 3 is just the uglier, less pro-consumer cousin to Infinite Warfare. Infinite Warfare feels like an improvement to Black Ops 3 in every single goddamn way, both in terms of how it handled post-launch content, the overall feeling of the movement and gunplay. Even the rig weapons and abilities were just more balanced than Black Ops 3's. In contrast to Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare truly shines, and I know a lot of you are going to dislike the video based on that notion, but look, Infinite Warfare is a game that I can't really talk too much more about than I already have. Infinite Warfare was the first game I covered as a more confident content creator that had been making videos for several years. I finally had a PC and workstation I was comfortable with, I had all of the equipment I needed, and I was ready to get into Infinite Warfare and just start reviewing it. Unfortunately, at that time, the entire COD community decided to turn their back on this game, or it feels like a vast majority turned their back on this game for what I can only describe as a sunken cost problem. You see, so many YouTubers put hundreds and hundreds of dollars into Black Ops 3, trying to get weapons, just essentially gambling their time away, trying to get weapons that they want. Okay, it's not real gambling, it's just RNG blind bag bullshit. It's still anti-consumer, because post-launch weapons were just hidden in these overly saturated supply drops. And these content creators had put so much time and money into Black Ops 3 that I feel like they didn't want to leave it behind. Because they didn't spend $60, $100, $150. A lot of them had spent over $1,000 on the game. So why would they go into Infinite Warfare and do it all again? Well, Infinite Warfare didn't require you to do it all again. You could grind pretty easily for the weapons you wanted. Now, there were some weapons that were supply drop only, and I disagree with that. Infinite Warfare had weapons that were much too hard to get. The chances of getting the weapons was slim to none, and I don't agree with that. There was also weapons that were just really hard to grind for. The weapons that you could buy with salvage, that's a great feature. I really like that they had their own in-game economy. That was a really good idea. But it took so long to get up the amount of salvage you would want for the higher end weapons. So the game was extra grindy, but at least it was grindy. It wasn't, again, gambly feeling. Again, Black Ops 3 is not real gambling. It's just blind bag bullshit. But that's still, it feels like gambling when you're just wasting hours and hours of time. Again, I am max prestige, almost level 300 in Black Ops 3. I got Dark Matter camo. And in that time, I never got the guns that I wanted. In Infinite Warfare, I have just about every gun that I ever wanted, and the guns that I didn't get were because I stopped playing. It wasn't due to them being unobtainable. Also, most of the weapons I wanted in Infinite Warfare came from completing mission team levels, which was a great side progression, and also just prestiges. Prestiges giving you classic weapons was so cool. Getting an M1 Grand, a G18, a UMP, a Spaz 12. That stuff was really cool. I'm really happy we got to see that. They could have put crappy variants behind their prestiges like Advanced Warfare did, but no, they decided to really make a prestige system worth grinding for. And if Infinite Warfare had come out before Black Ops 3 or before Advanced Warfare, or even after COD World War II, I probably would have max prestiged and went into the later prestiges, but I ended up not because I was so fatigued on advanced movement. You see, Infinite Warfare was the right game at the wrong time. It was better than Black Ops 3. Its map design is comparable, just as boring in many ways. I think Black Ops 3 might have a couple more interesting maps than Infinite Warfare. Infinite Warfare's maps are incredibly boring. Their DLC maps are better. I really wish some of those DLC maps were free because people, I think, would have enjoyed the game more on those maps, but whatever. Moving on, their maps are comparable, their gunplay is comparable, but I think Infinite Warfare edges out Black Ops 3 because of just having better, snappier gunplay and better hit detection. I do really appreciate that. The problem is that, of course, Infinite Warfare has the overpowered shotguns, but regardless, Infinite Warfare feels like a better Black Ops 3, but it's just, does it matter? Like, you could have the best game in the world, but if you're not in the mood for it, you're not in the mood for it. And the community was not in the mood for this game. Minecraft is really fun until you're not in the mood for Minecraft. Ghost of Tsushima is really fun unless you're not in the mood for an open world game. So these are important factors to consider. Like, would I play Persona 5 if I wasn't in the mood for turn-based RPGs? No. That being said, Persona 5 is one of the best turn-based RPGs I have ever played, if not the best turn-based RPG I have ever played. People wanted boots on ground so bad that the lead marketing strategy for COD World War II was that it was a return to boots on ground, more classic Call of Duty game. That was its big selling point. And that was really its only selling point, because in terms of gimmicks and interesting features, World War II sort of flopped, but we'll get to that later. And when Infinite Warfare was in its life cycle, there were a lot of misconceptions that I'd love to squish right now. Really the big ones were pay-to-win weapons and the fact that nobody played the game. First of all, this game was in the top 20 most played throughout its entire life cycle, and for its first 6 months, it was played more than Battlefield 1. It was played more than Modern Warfare Remastered. The notion that people bought this game to play Modern Warfare Remastered was deeply flawed when you look at the most played charts on Xbox, and Modern Warfare Remastered is 4 games behind Infinite Warfare at any given time. I never had trouble finding matches in Infinite Warfare, and even today I didn't really have any trouble finding matches in Infinite Warfare. This is a non-crossplay game that's apparently a huge, gigantic failure, but that remains to be seen when it comes to actually sitting down and playing it. But the major factor here is how it handled post-launch content. But moving away from that for a second, I'm going to squash the other misconception, and that is that the game had overpowered pay-to-win weapons. Everybody always said the NV4 flatline, the assault rifle with infinite damage range, that was bad. Yeah, but the infinite damage range basically gave you a 4-shot kill at far distances, but the normal gun would do that anyway because the maps really weren't that big. There wasn't really a lot of ranges where you could take advantage of this infinite damage range. Also, it fired slower. So if you were in the ranges of the default weapon would actually kill you faster because it fired faster. So your DPS was actually lowered for this infinite damage range. So it was a really good long-range rifle for consistent killing, except for it didn't shoot as fast, and most maps didn't really cater to it. I would honestly go as far as to say 90% of engagements did not take advantage of this rifle, but the community didn't want to look at it that way. They had a bad taste in their mouth from Advanced Warfare, and while some variants in Infinite Warfare, and I'm not going to list them all here, but some variants, yes, they were overpowered, they needed to be nerfed, they had no business being the way that they were. Okay, and most people would say that the Call of Duty community, YouTubers like Exclusive Ace or Drifter or Elite Shot even, T Martin, Allier, they can make a bit of a stink about certain weapons and systems and get them nerfed, get a lot of attention on them. I remember Drifter being very upset that the M16 in Advanced Warfare supply drops wasn't very strong. It was weak, and it wasn't worth going for. And so Advanced Warfare hopped right on that. Oh, this weapon that's only in our supply drops isn't strong enough? Sorry, we'll buff that for you. I remember this. It happened. That enthusiasm was completely drained out of YouTubers by the time Infinite Warfare came around, so we never got that sort of feedback loop that Infinity Ward needed. And it sucks, because Infinity Ward at the time was listening. Infinity Ward now doesn't seem to know how to use their Twitter account, but back then they were doing live streams weekly to figure out what the community wanted. I know this sounds like a rant video, but I'm just angrily laying out what happened. The COD community let this game down, and despite their best efforts to just let this game die, it continued on. It released weapons for free for everyone. If you had the season pass, you had the weapon directly added to your inventory. You could use it whenever you wanted. If you didn't have the season pass, then you were given a challenge to complete that would directly unlock the weapon for you. It even did double XP tokens better than Modern Warfare's doing it. Instead of having a double XP token that works in real time, the double XP tokens can be activated after each match at your discretion. So if you make a measly 4,000 XP, okay, not very great, but if you have an 11,000 XP game, yeah, use the double XP token on that game and get 22,000. That's awesome. And because leveling up mattered, leveling up meant you got weapons. You got new guns. And they were new old guns. You could go in this sci-fi game with people wall running and jumping around, and you could use an M1 Garand. That's cool. I like that a lot. This game, despite having a very fatiguing singular playstyle, it's like Black Ops 3. Very solid in how it's set up, but it's a one-trick pony. Yeah, so like I said in Black Ops 3, I like Call of Duty games where you can have a variety of playstyles. Methodical, campy, lurky, stealthy, or rushing, objective-oriented, just bombard your enemies type playstyles. I really like Call of Duty games that do a good job of catering to all of those playstyles. No COD does it perfectly, but Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and Advanced Warfare, if you don't like that specific pace of COD, or you just get bored of it after a while, then the game loses a lot of its quality. It's less of a sandbox and more of an arena, and you really can't shake that feeling when playing this game. Now, I think it's snappier, more intuitive, and has way better hit detection than Black Ops 3. It just does. I think the rigs are better balanced than the specialists were in Black Ops 3, and that does affect the gameplay in a positive way. That's to say, this game doesn't have the Tempest, the gravity spikes, the Ripper, Heatwave, and Purifier. It doesn't have that garbage. I rarely ever feel helpless in Infinite Warfare unless somebody's using cryo mines on the wall running spots, in which case I hope your parents beat you, but there's really not that many times in Infinite Warfare where I'm like, fuck this game, it's shit. The biggest problem in Infinite Warfare was the Synaptic rig, and they did end up nerfing it after a long time of just it dominating everything, but you could use the Cyclopean, which was a variant that was overpowered, that had a guiding laser, and then you could run the Synaptic rig with an Elite controller or a Scuff controller and just fly around the map. This was a huge problem, but we'll cover more of that in the ranting segment in part 2. Infinite Warfare was not a perfect game. And I hate to sound like I'm just ranting, but this is more just angrily laying out facts. Infinite Warfare was not a perfect game, but it was a solid game in Call of Duty's 8th gen lineup during a time of messy uncertainty in the franchise, and this game came along, respected its player base far more than its predecessors, did a good job of communicating with its player base, had way fewer technical issues in comparison to games like Black Ops 3, and also in my opinion, it's just a prettier, shinier game. It's just nicer to look at, especially since it's enhanced on Xbox One X and Black Ops 3 still isn't. I can play this game and it's much sharper above 1080p resolution. Black Ops 3 still looks fuzzy, same with Advanced Warfare. They never got any more love. Luckily, Infinite Warfare did. An imperfect game that treated its community nicely, had fewer technical issues, snappier controls, and better hit detection. I really can't fault this game for too much other than the fact that it didn't handle its variant system as well as it could. I think too many people had the sunken cost fallacy going on and they didn't even realize it. They liked Black Ops 3, they stayed with Black Ops 3 because they had soaked so much time or so much money or so much of both into it because the game demanded it. If you wanted to increase the variety of experiences in Black Ops 3, you had to buy the season pass and buy supply drops, and you had to just basically gorge yourself on the game, and it's very, very different in Infinite Warfare. It's a much more giving experience. And if you were buying the edition of Infinite Warfare that came with the season pass, for only $20 more, you got Modern Warfare Remastered. Activision played their cards really smart here. It was $110 to get Black Ops 3 and its season pass for me back when it came out. Then, in Infinite Warfare, it was $100, so $10 less for me to get the game, the season pass, which actually granted me access to weapons, and gave me an extra daily login bonus, and then just came with a fucking remaster of one of my favorite COD games ever. So no, I really don't see the problem with Infinite Warfare, and I love that the pattern repeated. After Black Ops 4, Modern Warfare is miles ahead of it when it comes to post-launch content and just being fair to all players. And I hope that we do not see a repeat, though, where we see Treyarch with Cold War have a slightly worse or drastically worse lineup of post-launch content. But there's a significant trend with Activision and Infinity Ward compared to Activision and Treyarch. And Infinite Warfare shined a giant bright light on that, and I'm sure that bothered people that spent so much time and money on the previous COD game. My final statement is that Infinite Warfare is an imperfect game at the exact wrong time. That's the best way to really lay out what I'm saying here. Thank you guys for watching this video. Stay tuned for part 2 where I quickly rant about all the shit that bothered me in this game, because my god, this game was so close to being perfect, and I can design, in my head, the perfect version of Infinite Warfare that I really wish they should have released. Thank you guys for watching. See you when I see you. Goodbye.